Thomas Hardy's poem A Wife in London is about the effect of war on people other than soldiers. But of course, you'd know all of that already if you'd watched part 1 of my analysis of this poem. There's part 1 of my analysis of the poem, and this is part 2, so I really do recommend that you watch part 1 first so that everything else in this video makes sense. So, go watch it, then come back here. And with that out of the way, here is part 2. This is where part 1 of my analysis of A Wife in London left off. I left you with those 4 questions for the 3rd stanza, and I hope you've had time to think about them and to maybe make some annotations of your own. Anyway, in just a moment, you will see some of my ideas for those questions. As readers, we wonder what might be ironic, and so the title of this second part of the poem is intriguing. However, it also indicates a slight shift in the poem, perhaps away from the lack of acceptance from the first half. First of all, it's important to remember that pathetic fallacy is when the weather, environment, or setting reflects human emotions. The fog hangs thicker could relate to the fog referred to in the first stanza, but it could also relate to feelings of grief, sadness, and depression, which are often associated with thick fogs. The wife is probably going to be feeling at least one of these things. Much like the image of a candle earlier in the poem, the alliterative firelight flicker is another image of waning light. These images in the poem could suggest the fragility of life or the inevitability of death. Whom the worm now knows is a very blunt way of expressing someone's death. This contrast with has fallen in the first half of the poem suggests that no matter how much comfort is offered to the wife, her husband cannot return. And now we have the poem's final stanza. Well done for making it this far through the video. We're almost there. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions to get through first. So why not pause the video, have a look at those questions, have a think, and make your own annotations. Remember, I do invite you to add your own annotations and your own analysis down in the comment section below. In this stanza, dashes have been used to contrast. Their use in this stanza acts as a callback to their use earlier in the poem, in the telegram. The telegram's message was negative, but the letter that the wife reads is positive. Fresh and firm are words that we associate with life. The soldier's letter is described as this, indicating his vitality when he wrote it. But this description is now ironic as he is dead. A positive tone is present in the soldier's letter, as seen in hoped return, home planned jaunts, and new love, suggesting that the soldier never truly believed that he was going to die in war, perhaps reflecting the confidence held by the British forces at the start of the war. Jaunt is a word that means a short excursion or journey, and it seems to emphasize the soldier's youth, making his loss all the more tragic. Generally, we associate the summer with happiness and bliss, especially as it makes most of us think about the summer holidays. This association is now ironic, as the poem is obviously very sad tonally. In poetry and literature, I find it useful to see a year or a day as a symbol for human life. Summer is obviously in the middle of the year, and so in this metaphor, it is one's peak or prime. If you buy into this metaphor, then this heightens the sadness of the soldier's death, as he had so much more life left to live. New love is clearly ironic, as the soldier and wife would not be able to make new love together, certainly not in the sense that he had anticipated. However, through mourning his death, you could say that the wife is learning to love him in a new way, and so the sentiment that the soldier expressed will in fact happen, just not in the way that he had hoped. And that is the whole poem analysed in depth. Now we're going to consider the 3 M's of the poem, and if that means nothing to you, I recommend that you have a quick look at the second video in this series, which is my second part of my analysis for Simon Armitage's The Manhunt, a link for which is appearing on screen about now. So there is my quick summary of the poem's meaning. I found this poem quite easy to summarise, perhaps because of the fact that it has 2 clearly defined halves. What do you think about my summary of the poem's mood? I said it's negative and depressing, and said that later on it's slightly more happy, but that happiness is ironic. And there is a summary of what I think Hardy's motivation was in writing this poem. In short, he held anti-war views and so wanted to write a poem about the negative effects of war, both on the soldiers and their families. What do you think? Here we have a theme table, and this is something that I also explained in my second part of my analysis of The Manhunt. In short, I think you might find it really useful to produce a large table that includes these themes up top and then down the side each of the 18 anthology poems. If I was filling out the grid, this is what I might have done. I've ticked power because in this poem the wife, and to an extent her husband, are shown to be powerless. I don't really see this poem being about nature, but I do see it as being about love, as this poem is about a wife and her husband. This poem is a war poem in the sense that it is about the effects of war on people, particularly the families of soldiers. Which anthology poem might this relate quite a lot to? I'd say that this poem is about time, in the sense that the cruelty of time has been highlighted in this poem. It is because the wife receives her husband's letter second that the events expressed in this poem are more painful for her. I almost ticked place here, as Hardy has been a little critical of London, as he is known to be. However, I don't think that there is enough of this in the poem, and so in the end I didn't tick it. This poem is about people, so I ticked the man section, and it's also about death, so I ticked the death section. But I don't really think there's anything particularly religious in this poem, hence the cross. So there we go. That is what I think the poem's themes are. But what do you think? How would you have filled this grid out yourself? Let me know down in the comments section below. I thought I'd give you some practice questions for this revision task. After all, exam practice is one of the best ways to practice for the exam. I've written these questions in the style of the GCSE questions, and I've provided 2 examples of each of the 2 different question types. So there's 2 for the single poem analysis, and there's 2 for the comparison question. If You want to write full answers for these or just essay plans? Go for it. Now, funnily enough, these are the questions that I wrote for the first version of this video, which I made in May 2019. And one of these questions did, in fact, come up on the GCSE paper. So, clearly I'm magic or something. Anyway, that is our analysis of A Wife in London done. If this video has helped you in any way, then please do give this video a like and also subscribe to my channel and turn on that notification bell too. Because if I've helped you with this poem, then there's another 17 anthology poems that I will be able to help you with too. And that's before I've covered any of the other lit texts. Do drop a comment too. You're welcome to add in any of your own bits of analysis or to ask me any questions that you might have about this poem. Adding a comment also helps me with the YouTube algorithms. If this video has helped you, then you can help me to help even more people by liking, commenting, and of course sharing. That way, it will be recommended to even more people. Have an awesome rest of the day. And remember to take short, frequent breaks as you revise, because a burned out student is not a happy or successful student. So which is crueler, war or time? Well, war was cruel as it took the soldier's life, and yet time was cruel as it offered the wife a glimpse of how happy her life could have been. So I don't think it's a case of one or the other. I think it's clear that both war and time have the potential to be just as cruel as each other.